when we first got electrical cars, they only went like 50 miles. They were like, yeah, we can make one that goes like 50 miles, 100 miles. And yeah, it just didn't even make sense to buy. Now they go 400, 500 miles potentially. And now we're talking about taking it even further.
What really stood out to me is how society is changing the ability to do communication, gain followings, etc. When we were teenagers, the way that you gained a following was you had to become an actor or actress on some TV show, and that's how people liked you, etc. Right? There was this not community. The YouTube became a thing where now all of a sudden, like, you can start following these influencers like on YouTube, and so now this whole world of like Twitch streaming, you could be a nobody and have this huge following just overnight, right? By stuff going viral and such.
The periodic table that we have, we only know very little about that. Like, we don't understand it, and people digging into it are going to create things that, if this is true, what we're talking about, this will be the biggest scientific breakthrough since what? Like flying? Welcome to another episode of Dental Rift. I'm your co-host, Gary Bird. I'm the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want.
I am Tanner Applegate, CEO and founder of Unified Dental. We are bringing insights to your office to help you understand exactly what's going on within your office.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so we got three juicy topics for today. Number one, there's a big lawsuit that a big DSO recently had some of their equity diluted, and some of the team members did not appreciate that. They didn't have clarity around that, and so now they are in court. We're going to talk about that. We'll tell you who that DSO is. Also, there was an influencer who recently gave away some free PlayStations, and it turned into a massive riot in the middle of New York, which is obviously a big problem. And I want to get your thoughts on that, Tanner. And then lastly, superconducting, room temp, and at room temp, which is unheard of. And a lot of people didn't know if it was possible or not. And now people are starting to say it is possible. People thought it was a scam for a minute. Now they're thinking it's not. And that potentially can lead to like supercomputing and different things like that. So let's jump in. Let's first talk about the superconducting. So there were some scientists, I believe they're in Korea, and they found some material that you can pass electricity through without it heating up. And that's always been the problem. When you pass electricity through anything, any kind of minerals that we have access to now, it gets too hot. And when it gets too hot, you can't keep computing. And supercomputing, if you want your computer to move super fast, you have to keep it cool or even at room temp. And now they're saying that they figured out this element or a mixture of elements that they can now send electricity through and keep it at room temperature. And I'm not an expert at it, but I would love your thoughts on this, Tanner. What do you think this means for us?
Well, you brought up the example of superconductor, and the reality is like the impact that this could potentially have if it ends up becoming true is infinitely beyond just computing as well, right? This could influence the transportation industry, where we could have trains that could go thousands of miles an hour now because of the fact that like you can have these superconductors where there's no gravity. There's no traction, right? So there's only air resistance on it.
Hey, I got a secret for you. Dental marketing agencies are dead. You got that right. Dental marketing agencies aren't performing the way that they used to because there's so much more complications to growing a dental office than just getting a marketing company. At SMC, we are passionate about being a growth partner and helping your practices grow the way that you want. And we have a free newsletter that goes out every single month at dentalmarketingdigest.com. If you sign up, it's free. And there's over 1,000 practices that are already getting these free tips. You don't want to miss out. Sign up now. Links below.
Right, friction. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. There's no friction.
And I saw somebody say you could get batteries for cars that could go infinitely, like infinite charges and things like that potentially.
Right. Because right now, if you do a charge on a Tesla or something, when you plug it in, you have to have the heat at the right temperature in order for the electricity to transmit well, right? So if we all of a sudden were able to eliminate that heat as a issue, you could have instantly charged batteries where, just imagine you could have unlimited range electrical cars. I feel like we just got electrical cars, and then all of a sudden now if we're able to make it unlimited range, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, when we first got electrical cars, they only went like 50 miles. Remember those first ones that came out that were like, yeah, we can make one that goes like 50 miles, 100 miles. And yeah, it just didn't even make sense to buy. Now they go 400, 500 miles potentially. And now we're talking about taking it even further.
Right. So I think all in all, though, where we have to recognize that it has been confirmed by one group of scientists, the world is in a rush right now to try and reconfirm that. Right. So it is not proven for sure in the science community that it has happened, that we're able to do these things. But what I think gets me excited more than anything is that the attention is there, that the potential is there, that even if it wasn't true, at least the focus is back on it to be able to go in and make that a reality again.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think people just playing around with this stuff. I was listening to a podcast today, and they said the mineral or the periodic table that we have, we only know very little about that. Like, we don't understand it. And people digging into it are going to create things that we like. This would, if this is true, what we're talking about, this will be the biggest scientific breakthrough since what? Like how big would this be from a compared to other thing like flying? Since flying, rockets, since rockets, since
a lot,
like,
yeah.
It's
creating the
big.
wheel.
Yeah, the wheel and fire.
You're eliminating the wheel now.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So amazing stuff. All right, I want to talk about this lawsuit in a minute, but first I want to get your thoughts on this guy named Kai. So he is an influencer. He's actually a live streamer, and so he has a huge following and makes a ton of money. And he does these giveaways where he'll give away PlayStations. A lot of his followers are younger kids, and so PlayStations are pretty big deal. And so he said, hey, I'm going to be giving away a PlayStation in the middle of New York. And everybody showed up, like thousands of people showed up. And he ended up not giving it away, or something happened. And the crowd just got restless and they started breaking stuff. And it turned into a riot. Like, cops got hurt. People were throwing stuff. Property was destroyed. It was not a good look. Let's just say that. What is going on? Like, is this, sometimes I go, okay, am I just the old guy now that looking at the younger kids going, man, what in the world is going on? Or are we at a place now where like lawlessness is just popping up more and more and more?
Well, I think it's the way, when I heard about this event or watched it, like, what really stood out to me is how society is changing with the ability to do communication, gain followings, etc. Right? When we were teenagers, the way that you gained a following was you had to become an actor or actress on some TV show, and that's how people liked you, etc. Right? There was this not community. The YouTube became a thing where now all of a sudden, like, you can start following these influencers like on YouTube, and so now this whole world of like Twitch streaming, you can become nobody and be a nobody and have this huge following just overnight, right, by stuff going viral and such. And so I think that for me, what really stood out to me was that he was just like, oh, hey, I'm just gonna like drop by this area, maybe a few of my friends might show up. But this guy knew he had hundreds of thousands of followers, and even a very small percentage of that makes up still a huge crowd in this area. And so to me, for him to just think that he can go and do that without any kind of proper planning or any of these proper like precautionary issues was just mind-blowing to me. And so I think, though, that what we're going to see is that as you start getting these inexperienced viral sensations, it's not going to be uncommon that they don't know how to handle their audience.
So,
right? So in-person meetups, there's just an example of it.
So let me ask you a question then, because this is kind of where the direction of things are going. Should the people who host something like that, so if I say, hey, I'm going to host this thing, and it turns violent. I have an event coming up in 2 weeks, and if it won't, it's a dental event. But if it goes violent and it burns down the hotel, and I was the one who created it, and I didn't plan for it, I didn't have any kind of planning or security or anything like that, should that be on me? Should that fall on the plate of the person who organized that?
Oh, definitely. I think that to a degree it should, because of the fact that if it doesn't, if there is no repercussions to you for being neglectful in that way, what's to stop you from wanting to just go and do it again, right? Oh, that was funny.
It gets me a lot of attention, and it gets me more followers because people are now. Right. I think about this. We're talking about a teenage streamer on a dental podcast because of how big that got. That gets him a lot more attention. So if we don't check that, then yeah, that could be part of a marketing strategy.
He did get arrested. I think it was maybe not even a slap on the wrist. It might have been just for his own safety and protection as well. But he did get arrested and then get released later that night. And so I do think that, yes, because it really, I think that it's inciting violence is the crime there, right? Is creating a gathering that isn't
lawful,
isn't I guess No, it's oh my gosh, what's the term that I'm thinking of? I feel like I haven't been talking enough today, Gary. I'm losing my words, but yeah. So essentially, creating a gathering that isn't approved right by the right authorities, and then all of a sudden it's turning violent. Yeah, like you definitely need to have some repercussions for that.
I agree. Now, the flip side of that, I heard somebody talk about it, and they said you shouldn't have the right to tell somebody not to go somewhere, right? So we shouldn't be able to tell famous people or anybody, no, you can't travel here, you can't travel there. But it's the pre-planning of it that causes problems, right? So I'm totally with you on that. Let's talk through this lawsuit that you were telling me about. You said there was a big DSO, and they recently had a lawsuit because there was a dilution in their stock, and there was not transparency around it. Could you kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, so I got to make sure we set the stage on this too. A DSO, especially really large ones with multiple hundreds of locations, will have these sub DSOs within their DSO, right? So this lawsuit was within a sub DSO of North American Dental Group. It wasn't all of North American Dental Group, and so just be aware of that going into this. This is not does not mean this is a black mark on anything that North American Dental Group does, but what happened was that one of these sub DSOs diluted the ownership equity of some of the doctors within their group or dentists associated with it, right? So hundreds of doctors are actually suing this sub DSO, trying to get clarification on why their equity shares were now diluted, right? So I think that would be definitely a mishap that happened there. Is like, hey, because it could be there's a lot of justifiable ways to dilute these ownerships equities, but the thing is it has to be met with communication as to why and how it's been approved and these type of things in order to do it, not after the fact of like, hey, we just found out that our equity's been diluted, why, right? So I think that's definitely a big misstep there, that they should have been a lot more forthcoming on this information. And again, I'm glad that it hasn't been in the anti-DSO space gone in and blown up. I think that it very easily could be, where it's something that they take and say is, hey, look, another example of why you should never join a DSO. So I do think though that all in all, like if you're running a DSO, if you have partnership dentists, and if for whatever reason you do need to have any dilution of those dentists, just do it with good communication. It makes the rest of the industry look bad.
Can you break it down for people? Because I feel like a lot of our audience probably has like maybe one partner, right? It's just like, hey, me and my partner here, we're growing a bigger organization. Could you just break down dilution and what that means, and why that is a problem or something to be aware of?
Yeah. So let me see. Within the dilution world that I know of, right, you can go in and sell a piece of your equity that's outstanding, and that will then, now you have a new owner in this new piece of equity and somebody gets bought out, right? But what happens too is like, if you're like, hey, let's not go in and sell any of our existing equity, let's go and offer new equity so that people can buy into that. Now all of a sudden, if you used to have 100 shares, but now you have 150 shares because you issued 50 new shares, now the value of everyone's equity goes down because they issued these 50 shares. So I'm not saying that's exactly what happened in North American, but that is how you get diluted, is by issuing new shares. And so that could be a factor here.
Yeah. And that's, a lot of people don't put thought into that when they're partnering with people, that, hey, you could be diluted. And so great point. All right, man. Well, this is a really good episode. Appreciate the talk today.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.